Esta conferencia comenzará a grabarse.
Welcome also, Alex.
Hi, Antonio.
Perfect. So I see that you are both here with us. For your information, we usually take for the first block of our sessions 20 minutes. Okay, so you should try to fit your speeches both in 20 minutes, and after that we will open the floor for everybody that wanted to ask or comments, because this is not only about your project, it's about blockchain, generally speaking, okay? And I hope to have different experts here and to have a very interesting discussion about the technology, the possibilities, and so on. So, buongiorno, Ilaria, also. Ilaria?
Buongiorno, good morning to everybody.
Good morning.
Hi, Ilaria.
Ciao, Marco.
Ilaria, would you like to introduce the two speakers for today? It was your... Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so as it is time, you can start, Ilaria.
Just very short introduction. Alessandro Vitale and his brother Marco Vitale, that is the president of the Quadrants Foundation, together with Marco Crotta, that is a researcher and developer, so applied researchers also in blockchain, are involved into commission together with the National Ministry of Italy for this improvement and in the implementation of the technology at national level and international level, and considering our region, in the region, we were discussing about the implementation on the cosmetic value chain, because they already implemented in the agricultural agri-food value chain. They will explain it, and there is a very interesting possibility in order to implement the cosmetic value chain. So that's it. Yeah, I will give the word to Alessandro.
Thank you, Ilaria. Yes, so let me just briefly, okay, some pop-up. Am I able to share the screen for my presentation?
Yes, you can do it if you want. Now we are seeing it.
Okay, can everybody see the screen?
Perfect.
Okay, so let me first introduce briefly what we do at the foundation. I'm a member of Quadrants Foundation, and the foundation was established 2 years ago. The main mission of the foundation is to, first of all, it's a non-profit organization based in Switzerland, and the mission is to conduct the research and development activities in an effort to build a blockchain, a global blockchain infrastructure. And together with the R&D activities, we are working towards the promotion and the education of the use of the new innovative technology, which is the blockchain. Okay, so the blockchain related to the recent crisis that we have in Europe. We are at a point where the current scenario has seen over the previous years a great adoption, increasing adoption to blockchain applications, and the current scenario with the COVID-19 strengthen the need for and stress the importance for digital tools, the need for digital tools to address immediate actions and quick intervention globally. So we are looking for digital tools to prevent this type of crisis that we have just faced and we are on the way out at the moment. So this combines with the time where we find ourselves on a crossroads and the so-called paradigm shift. So what do we mean by paradigm shift? So it's a cultural shift. It's a change that is occurring to businesses in the industry, to organizations, to institutions at the government level as well. So it's a change that affects digital systems, and the switch is from centralized traditional systems to distributed and decentralized systems. So this is the paradigm shift that we are experiencing at the moment. And we are here as a foundation to guide the shift and to guide individuals and organizations that are willing to embrace the power of the blockchain technology as a main tool to enable the shift. And we are ready to introduce them to the technology and base this foundational technology at the core of their business structure in order to implement new business models and be ready for new challenges, such as the current coronavirus pandemic we've just seen happening. So why choosing blockchain? So the blockchain is an amazing technology that brings many benefits with it. Some of the benefits are native to the technology, and the main characteristics that this technology has is that by design enables transparency of data, has a certain level of security embedded in itself. It's tamper-proof by design, and I'm sure if we go into the technical details, that will be more clear, but maybe only for the technical people. It has a flexible approach, so it can be approached with in a very flexible way. That means that different technologies can be built and developed on top of the infrastructure. It's very interoperable, and it's a technology that can be used to gather different applications and different systems in order to expand the technological ecosystem with other technologies, such as the emerging artificial intelligence or the IoT environment that we are going towards. And obviously, it can be applied and deployed in any industry, so it doesn't have to be industry specific. And this is why we strongly believe that we can place a blockchain infrastructure at the base of any application in any industry. So how does this technology can help defeat a pandemic? We have just experienced one. There might be others in the future, so we want to be ready to take on this problem, learning from the strength and the mistake that we have made during this pandemic, and be ready to face the next one. So what we have learned from experience is that the blockchain has been developed in a way that can assist different systems, bringing different applications to the table, and enable organizations and individuals to build new models to cater for different needs. For example, only some examples are listed here, but say the blockchain can be used to trace and monitor the supply chain of medical equipment, medical materials like masks, gloves, or the test kits. It can be a big problem if they come from an illegitimate source and or might be fake, or even the result itself. It can be used for contact tracing with contact tracing applications, so tracing individuals, affected individuals, or positive cases around in order to map an area and better manage the intervention of the government and the institution. It can also be used to help scientific research, leveraging on the power of distributed computer. So the blockchain is a distributed infrastructure, and the blockchain can be used to collect computational power and channel it towards a specific target. In this case, can be the scientific research. It can enable transparent and immutable sharing of data or material related to patients or hospitals. It can be used for health management, insurance management, and so on. So the applications are really thousands and thousands. So what I've brought here, some use cases. As I mentioned before, the traceability of the test kits. The blockchain can be used to certify the origin, to make sure they come from a legitimate source, to actually come from where they come from, they say they're coming from. This is very useful for example, NGOs or organizations or institutional agencies that are involved in the distribution of the material communities. So in order to have a track record of the information that are coming from these test kits, and they can trace what's going on down to the laboratory results. This tracing from source to the laboratory enables a real-time access to critical information that can be used to combat the needs that arise in a certain area, geographical area, or for certain patients. And it provides an immediate snapshot of the situation based on geographical regions. So blockchain is a platform for smart contracts, which are basically programs. And by using programs, we can overcome the issue that is related to the use of different standards in different regions. So by connecting all the affected people and the stakeholders on the same platform and deploying a common smart contracts with common rules, we can overcome the issue related to different approaches and maybe channel the efforts in a better way. Another is, as I mentioned before, the use of distributed computing to help the enormous calculations that are needed to run the simulations of the protein folding, the viral protein folding, which is how the viral protein reacts and reproduces. So the Stanford University has launched this initiative called Folding at Home, and is a distributed computing project aimed at developing a treatment for the COVID based on the computational power that the blockchain system can provide to this initiative, to this project. So as a foundation, we are participating to this initiative. So we have provided our distributed network that includes already hundreds of nodes. The Quadrants infrastructure has created, Quadrants Foundation has created a team and has gathered the Quadrants nodes that are willing to participate to this project. And we are channeling our computational power coming from the Quadrants infrastructure to help the research and the scientists at Stanford University in an effort to find a treatment for the COVID-19. Other use case, blockchain can be deployed to help face-to-face business activities that have been affected recently by the pandemic. As we know, sadly, many businesses had to shut down or slow down normal operations. But with the use of technology and the help of these digital tools built on a platform such as the blockchain, we can we can manage to overcome some of the issues that are directly affecting these businesses. For example, the use of the blockchain can bring us support to businesses and individuals to certify and notarize smart working activities that are being carried out at home, from home, providing a proof of what we call proof of existence and a track record of the activities that are performed online, such as video conferences or webinars, trainings with related documentation. So these can be notarized on blockchain, and a track record can be used by the interested stakeholders. The information brought on the blockchain are certified, and with the aid of the encryption and smart contracts, this can enable a nice tool and a very, very useful technology that can be used for future scenarios where we will see more people working from home for different reasons and not being as affected as we have experienced in the last pandemic with the COVID-19. So what's in the future? We strongly believe as a foundation that the blockchain technology is really pivotal for the shift. So the shift of from decentralized to decentralized applications, from the traditional collaboration to our more broader collaboration between organizations and not limited to them, but including NGOs, stakeholders, government and institutions that are working towards a common goal on a common platform. The fundamental steps that we have seen happening or started happening, and we will want to see happening in the future, is first of all, we need to achieve trust in data, because without trust in data, we cannot make that step and step towards a more collaborative environment. The collaborative environment needs to be supported by institutions that will have to build an efficient legal framework to regulate responsibilities and accountabilities to organizations and to the participant of this platform. The legal framework is a big step. Once this is ready, then we think the blockchain technological infrastructure will be ready to be deployed in a mass adoption. And from that point on, there will be a surge of application that will be built on top of this technology. And we strongly believe that the proliferation of this kind of application, together with emerging and innovative technology, will provide a new environment which will be more collaborative and will enable to take some steps towards situations like the COVID-19 that we have experienced, and make it prevent in the future.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I hope I didn't see the 10 minutes.
That's perfect. Will you continue now?
Yes, now is the turn of
Marco?
Marco.
Yes. Can I share the screen? I have a couple of slides to.
Yes, I will give you the presentation, right?
Thank you very much.
Marco is one of the main experts in blockchain in Italy, and he's also founder of the Blockchain Cafe and applied researchers and developer. Thank you, Marco.
Thank you very much. So I'll try to convince you that actually we need an European blockchain platform for all the benefits that they can bring, not only related to the coronavirus issues. Thanks, Alice, for the many things, the right things he said. He's also helping me because he's taking away part of the work that I was supposed to do, because he already did that. But basically, the idea is COVID-19 for many of us, or for many companies, was basically a test, a resilient test, and we saw some companies succeed, especially those who could work online, and we saw also a lot of companies that had troubles coping with it and with this new reality. So the point is, will we be ready? Should there be a next time? Or even, why do we need to be ready for a next time and not just try to make things better from the start right now? Which tools do we need? And my question is, could European blockchain be the tool that we need to make the change and to move forward on many different aspects, many of those Alex told us about? Well, of course, to me, the answer is yes. I'll try to explain you why. Well, first, as we already saw and many of us know, the blockchain has many features, and those are the security, transparency, verifiability. But the main things to me as a researcher are that this technology is basically trustless. It means you don't have to put any sort of trust in any third party for it to work. And the main reason for this is that all aspects of trust that we experience in other means have been taken away and substituted with cryptographic and mathematical proof. And that's the beauty of this technology. And also, this is in a framework that make information stored on the blockchain is immutable. You will note the asterisk because there are some conditions about that. But most of all, this is a technology that is extremely resilient, and this is exactly the word that we must focus on. And anti-fragile basically means you can't break it. It can't be broken. And this is an amazing feature. Most of the time, we try to see where can we apply the blockchain, and this is sort of a riddle to us, because sometimes it seems like we have a solution and we are looking for the problem to solve it. But the point is, we see that we have so many things that we can do with it, that we are left with the shocking situation where we do not know where to start. Well, the first thing probably is know where not to apply it, because as any technology, it doesn't mean it can solve all the problems in the world, but you have to know exactly which things are feasible and which are meaningful. One for all, of course, supply chain, but not only for goods. We have been applying a supply chain methodology also to documents, to information, to any sort of situation where you have a flow of objects in the informatic and computer science section of the term, through many different people, and you need to provide evidence of something that is going in the right way. Most of all public administration. So basically, the idea is, think of the blockchain as the new internet, as the new media, as the new infrastructure, and there are so many applications you can build on over internet, like websites, like Netflix, like Amazon, like anything you can imagine of. Those are the effects of the underlying technology. So no, don't mix the two things. We will come back to this later, between the application layer and the structure layer, because this brings a lot of confusion, especially to those who are not familiar with this technology. Because this technology is often said it is disruption. Disruptions mean there is a pre-blockchain way of doing things, and there is a post way of doing things with the blockchain, and there is no bridge in between those. This means that you cannot understand and apply the blockchain like thinking in a reductionist way. So you cannot think of the blockchain as a drop-in replacement for any database, because the blockchain is not a database. If you're using the blockchain just as a database, you're not using it right. You're not using it enough. You're not using its full potential. The thing is, you have to understand that this is a very deep change in the way that the technology makes your company work. It changes basically the value proposition of your company or the project you are dealing with. So it changes the business model. So all the design of the concept of the project, the design of the application has to be taken down and rethought about from the beginning, knowing that we are using blockchain, and that is an important part most of the time to the application. What does it take to make a real blockchain? Well, it has to be public, and this is good. This is not an issue. This is the very most part of the reason why you want to use a blockchain. If there is just one takeaway that we will bring from this speech, please make it this one. A real blockchain has to be public. There are so many things like so-called private blockchain, but this is a commercial thing. It's not a scientific thing. I don't know anyone in the scientific community that's even talking or studying about private blockchain, because this is not even a thing to them. It makes absolutely no sense. There is just one way of having a resilient, open, transparent, accountable blockchain and all the characteristics that we saw before, and it has to be public. It doesn't mean that it has to be anarchic, as we will see. It's actually exactly the opposite. But most of all, a public blockchain is thought from the beginning as a service, meaning that you don't have to make your own, you don't have to build your own. It's already there. You just have to use the one that is there, and this brings your project further years in the development at a fraction of the cost, because it's public, because it's there just to be used. So you don't have to make your own infrastructure, which is an incredible cost for most company, and most company cannot sustain. So the reason is you have to distinguish between the structure layer that has to be public and the application layer. Most people are scared about this thing about the public blockchain, because there is this misconception. Think about, for example, as the internet. Bear with me just for the sake of the argument. Let's pretend that actually internet is 100% public infrastructure, since everybody can have his blog, he can write his post, can post his pictures, and so on. This does not mean that everything that is built on a public infrastructure has to be public. Think about, for example, your home banking account and so on. So we are dealing with two different separate layers, and we do not have to mix them, because what results from the studies is that the best way to use a blockchain is to have a public blockchain, and on top of that you build whatever you want. You can have your filtering layers, you can have your ACLs, and you can have your encryption, but the important thing is the underlying blockchain is public, so that it's reliable, trustworthy, and can actually be held accountable, anyone who uses it for what he does. There is this misconception also that the blockchain is against GDPR, or they fight. Actually, this is not the case. The only thing is you have to know exactly how to use the blockchain, not to infringe the GDPR. And actually, there are many cases in which blockchain is the best ally if you want to enforce GDPR in its application. So there is still too much noise around this technology, and most of the time is not explained very well. So this is the reason why we have so many misconceptions that are derailing us from the right way you're using it and the right way to apply it. There is this simple use case. For example, how could you use a blockchain to fight coronavirus? We saw many examples. Actually, to be true, most of the examples I saw up today are not very feasible, or we should think twice before implementing them. But this could be an idea. We could have a European blockchain platform that serves as a collaboration platform in between many different laboratories that do research, let's say, to get to a vaccine against COVID-19. So we could use this blockchain to deposit the news that we receive about the vaccine from all over the world, try to understand exactly how it is spreading, and also news, since we also had the problem of the fake news concerning the coronavirus, could get information from the blockchain, from reliable sources, instead of spreading misinformation should that happen. So we could get to a point where we have a sampling of the virus, so we can sample the genome and you can put this genome on the blockchain so that we know who put it when and exactly how it was sequenced and who did that, and so that everybody starts with the same data, and any other lab in the world can start gathering those data and making his own research and experiments on it. So we can have, for example, a first laboratory that gets those data, make some experiments, and put the experiments on the blockchain. This is very good for the lab itself, because it's actually protecting his intellectual property, because it's basically saying, I am the first that did this experiment, and that are the results that I got from it. So everybody can feel free to contribute and go on from now on. So it doesn't mean he's actually sharing, but he's also taking credit for the work he did. So we can have data analysis of any kind of the data that are shared in between the different laboratories until we get to one that actually makes a breakthrough and can get us to get a vaccine. In the meantime, all those exchange of information are public. So if there is any anything that concerns the law, patents, or issuing of any legal document can be done in real time while the things are happening, knowing exactly who did what and why and which were the result. And we can end up to the phase where we actually have a vaccine and we can produce it, and we can see if the protocol of the production is followed correctly, but whichever pharmaceutical company is actually producing the virus, and also track this administration of the virus to the population. So see how many shots of the virus were sent to Italy, how many to Spain, how many to Germany, and so on. Also, please note that every single icon on this diagram could be actually a small supply chain of itself. So it's not just one simple operation on the blockchain. We can have a whole set of application that is represented by every single of those icons. So what do we need? Well, COVID-19 experience showed us that we need actually a resilient, unstoppable platform, and the blockchain is exactly that. That's why we're looking at the blockchain now for this for this situation. Also, the benefits is that it's completely transparent and trustless, meaning that people somehow have to agree and have to tend to be honest, because everybody can let's say lie, saying something on a blockchain and putting false information on a blockchain, but you have a way to track him down and to know who did what and why. EDC, for example, believe that the blockchain ecosystem, especially in the European Union, is going to be boosted in the near future, but the accent of the final line is that these have to be reliant and transparent. Hence, it must be, of course, we're speaking about a public blockchain, not a private blockchain, since it doesn't have those two characteristics. And finally, as I knew that Alex was presenting before me, if you want to give it a try and want to start to do something, then probably Quadrants is the best choice for you, because basically you don't have to make your blockchain. This is a mistake that many companies make. You don't have to buy a blockchain because it's yours, and once a blockchain belongs to somebody, it's useless. There are many alternatives. Quadrants, of course, is one of those. The reason why you could, for example, have a look at Quadrants, it's completely free, meaning that it's free, meaning that you pay nothing. It's open, it's public, it's already available, it's already in the standard with the AVM, so it's based on Ethereum, so you already have all the tools you need to develop, all the documentation you need to develop. It already has 300 nodes, which, by the way, are mostly in Europe, especially in Italy and in Germany. So somehow it just looks already like the European blockchain, by the way. And for those who should be scared, don't worry. There's no cryptocurrency involved, so there is no mining, so there is no issues with high cost of energy, or because it's mostly smart contract platform. So the reason why you should use it is because it's not a speculative tool, but is mostly means by which you get a smart contract running. So it's a business tool basically for many of us, and it's already there. You just have to give it a try, basically. Thank you very much. So I'm sorry, I apologize. I have to run through the presentation and I have to take many shortcuts, but if anybody needs any other information, you can find me there.
Grazie mille, Marco and Alex and Ilaria. Just one comment, okay? Because here, this is an open community for sure, okay? The European Alliance Against Coronavirus. But we are not so much academic as businesses, mostly clusters. And so our main focus, at least of the clusters, is to promote some businesses on profit. There are a part of our cluster that is social cluster, okay? But I am saying that because for me, it's clear that we need to focus on the business side, okay? How to use blockchain for our businesses. And that's one point that I would like to open here for general discussion, okay? Because I understand that if we take an academic approach or a totally open data approach simpler, okay, but that's not always the case. And I have another point, yeah, another comment, that is why can blockchain not be private? Why not? And
Can I?
meaning close to only a group of people or companies.
Because basically, okay, there is a technical mathematical reason behind that. It's not just an opinion, so it's mostly geek stuff. But the idea basically is that if you close the blockchain, it's a very important choice. The first thing you have to notice is that if you close the blockchain from the public, then it means basically that whatever is in that blockchain has no meaning at all for the public. So if you say, I have my closed blockchain, and in my closed blockchain, I say that I'm the Queen of England, then doesn't mean that it's true. And this doesn't mean that the people outside the blockchain should care about what it is inside, because you can write anything you want in there and nobody is going ever to question what you do there. And also the other thing is, you can change the data on your local blockchain. Say you have a local blockchain of 10 nodes, you are the owner of the blockchain, so you can just say, okay guys, let's stop this blockchain for a couple of minutes and we can.
I don't agree, Marco. I don't agree, because you could create a private blockchain with nodes in different institutions and different, yeah.
Who is the
and
owner?
The nodes will be the community of the
No,
blockchain.
because it's closed.
Yeah.
If it's closed, there is no community.
Yes, there is a community, a private community.
Okay.
Why not?
So you have to. That is the case when it works with this so-called Mexican stall. I mean, you have a community of 10 people that do not trust each other, and then they try to use the blockchain in order to fix the issues that they have in between them. But this means that if there is any other person apart those 10, whatever it says in the blockchain, there is no absolute reason for that, because only those 10 persons know that they are checking one on another, and only they know if they are doing it for real. They could be pretending to be doing that for other persons. So if you use a private blockchain for your 10 people and you say whatever we write there, it's okay, then fine. But it is an instrument whose capabilities and effects are limited to the 10 people using that. You cannot use it as a general thing, because there are it becomes trust-based once you use it that way. And basically, we also did a couple of studies with people from Deloitte and IBM, and basically the thing is, if you try to use define the use of a private blockchain, then there is always a means for which we can reproduce exactly the same thing using a traditional distributed database, meaning that basically a traditional distributed database like you can have with MySQL, SQL Server, CouchDB, which by the way is at the basics of many so-called private blockchain, is exactly the same thing of running a private blockchain, because it technologically exactly the same. The mathematics between under those two, the algebra under those two things is exactly the same. So you can use it in a very limited fashion, in a very limited situation for a limited number of people. So the point is why it becomes very, very private and personal thing. So the thing is, okay, it's not going to be disruptive. It's going to be change anything, because it's going to be just a useful tool for the few people using it, as long as they are using it the way they are supposed to and meant to, as long as they agree to use the thing. For if you try to take the course for the certification for one of those most famous private blockchain, there is an exercise that technician has to do, is like how to fix things once somebody has tampered with the data, which means that basically somebody can tamper with the data in a private blockchain. Otherwise, there would be no reason to put that exercise in the exam for the certification. So first of all, in private blockchain, people can tamper the data. And the point is, the risk of people tampering the data in a private blockchain is that it can either stop the blockchain from working until data is fixed, or it can overwrite data for others in the private blockchain. This is the high risk that you have to avoid, but it's still possible. So you have to prepare people to deal with tampered data. So it is an extra effort. The point is, if you try to change this situation from a private blockchain to a public blockchain, the situation is just, it can't happen. So if it can happen, you don't have to fix something, because the difference is arise on the means of the consensus algorithm between them. So the public blockchain has a consensus algorithm that knows that there is somebody who's going to try to tamper the data and prevents it at the protocol level, so it's just not happening. While on the private blockchain, things are done differently, and these things can happen, and you have to fix things once they get broken. The nice thing about blockchain is it can be broken.
Marco,
Do you mean that in a private blockchain you cannot use the consensus algorithm?
No, you should be using one. The point is that the most famous private blockchain that you can find on the market first use algorithms that are not consensus
but we are not
algorithms.
using. It's totally possible to use that
It's
algorithm.
possible, but the point is not all consensus algorithms are born equal. There are those consensus algorithms that are also called Byzantine fault tolerant, meaning that if somebody is trying to break the data, the consensus algorithm prevents that, and that is the case with proof of work. And actually, this problem has been laying around in mathematics and computer science since the 70s, and the first time it was actually solved in an elegant way was with Bitcoin. So we had this problem around for 70 years, and Bitcoin was the first solution and actually solved it in a Byzantine fault tolerant way, which means if you have bad people inside your blockchain, those people cannot get to anything. The point is, with private blockchain, if you try to do that, then you are rewriting a public blockchain from the beginning, and you get to the point where in the end it makes no sense to have a private blockchain that does all the effort of a public blockchain. So it's very difficult. That's why most private blockchain don't have a Byzantine fault tolerant consensus algorithm, and the reason why is it would cost too much. So the idea is it's far cheaper to have a private blockchain that has just perimeter security and says, let's just pretend that inside this perimeter we only have good guys, so we do not have to go through the effort of making a consensus algorithm that prevents bad guys inside the organization to do malicious stuff. And that's the reason why in the end you have to skill people to deal with the tampering of data that can happen.
So I understand that the problem that the private blockchains has, in my opinion or experience, is that they are quite expensive in terms of resources, calculation, and yeah.
Which one? The public?
The private ones.
Oh, the private one.
Everything is possible in a private blockchain network.
Yes,
You
exactly.
use exactly the same.
That's the problem.
But
everything is possible. So the point is,
not efficient.
Yeah, the point is everything is possible in a private blockchain, meaning that it can also have things that should not happen, could be happening. The point is that how do you filter them out? Generally speaking, the cost of ownership for a company, so you were talking business before, if a private company wants to run his own private blockchain, has to set up his data center, his nodes, has to deal with all the management of the resources. So basically, they have to spend a lot of money. The cost basically could be around 700 to 1,000 euros a year for every single node. And most private blockchains run from between 4 nodes to 24, 26, and so on. There is also a mathematical reason for that, because they do not scale very well with the number of nodes. So yes, they cost very much if you want to have your own. While on the other hand, if you want to use a public blockchain, like we saw, for example, Quadrants before, you just download the software, you make it run, and that's it. You don't have to have your data center. You can. I have a node of Quadrants running right now on my laptop. It's not affecting the performance of the conference and so on. So the idea is, if you want to start cheap, then also the public blockchain is a good way to go, because you just pay what you use, and for example, in some cases you pay nothing.
I don't want to. Oh, sorry.
Can I add my opinion on public and private blockchain? Basically, there is a principal issue here. I believe that by limiting the number of people that are participating, so the number of nodes that are participating to the consensus mechanism, and this happens in private blockchain, as Marco has mentioned, there are 24 to 26 nodes that can participate in the network. you are centralizing the decision-making power of the network. So that undermines the principle of transparency and decentralization of the decision-making power that the blockchain is bringing since it was first invented with Bitcoin. And it really doesn't make sense to have a tool unless it's used for internal purposes, and it can be a really nice and effective tool for internal business. But if we are talking about a bigger, a much broader blockchain, for example, as the European blockchain or a global blockchain, it really doesn't make sense to have this limitation when we can have something that it should be open, free, and everybody can participate to the consensus mechanism. So that's why I'm a member of Quadrants Foundation, and this is why I really believe that public blockchain is the real blockchain, and private blockchain, they should be called tools, and it can be very effective for one purpose, but for a broader purpose, as for example, a European blockchain or global blockchain, they're not the best.
Comments, questions?
Marco, there are some questions in chat. Can you give an example of a specific use of somebody? What can we do exactly?
Oh, well, I can tell you what we did recently in the past. For example, we with Alex, we worked a lot on the food traceability, basically giving a history to every food product that can be produced. So basically, the idea is that I can tell my consumer how I work, which is the quality that I put on my food, why I choose to use the type of ingredient rather than another, where it comes from, which are the insurances that I get. We do this by collecting information about the whole process along all the supply chain, from we say from farm to fork, and this is a very common way of calling it. And basically the idea is I want to show my customer, my client, how I work and why he should choose me over my competitor, because I am transparent. We had a lot of issues with the food producer in Italy that said the consumer does not trust us anymore. And basically this was a byproduct of the fact that we've been telling them so many times and for so long that the fresh and original fruit just come from the farm, so that industrial food was put out of the question. So the idea is, how do we gain the trust of our customers back? The point is, you can't get trust back once it's lost, because this is a very human thing. But you can go and say, well, you don't have to trust me. You can check. You can see by your own. This is what I state about the food, and these are the data that I provide. You can mix actually the technology allow you to mix the information that along all the supply chain on a quantitative way in order to see if it is there's something off. A very basic example is say that I have a farm with a piece of land, and I raise grapes for wine. If you know the size of the field, and I can show you with official documentation, you can have an idea of how much grapes I make a year, so you can have an idea of how many bottles of wine can come out after that. So if I say they have this very small field and I produce an incredible amount of wine, there's something off. So this is the power of a blockchain application. You can put data can be collected, can be crossed, and can be cross-checked with each other until you get out to a story to the consumer that is capable of looking at it and see if there is something off, there's something cheesy, there's something that is not actually very well described, and choose to promote your product because you've been transparent to the user or not. This is an example with food. We've been applying that to many other types of many other industries. We applied it to fashion and textile to ensure that, for example, say there is a stylist and he produces 300 version of that specific dress, and you want to be sure that it's an original one, and you can follow the journey of the dress after the sale. You can do many other things. Basically, is showing this is just one example. It's the family of application on the blockchain that allow you to show your customer how you work and which is the benefit of using your product over the one of your competitors. But there are many others. We are working on the legal framework just to show, for example, to ease the exchange of documentation in between in the court, for example, to know exactly who is the judge, who is the attorney, what they are doing, why they've been selected this way, and follow the documentation, because also documentation, especially, for example, in a legal case, could be seen as a supply chain. It's very different, but it is. So we have to design, as we did, a modular approach that is able basically to describe as many possible different supply chain, so that you can actually describe the process and follow it through and provide accountable information, transparent information for everything you are doing.
Celine.
Yes, thank you very much for this session today. Very interesting. To continue the question and to be sure I understand very well, what is the difference between what you describe here and a kind of relational database, actually, which would be regularly updated, and fundamentally, what is the difference of the structure and what is the added value of the blockchain?
Basically, accountability and transparency. The idea is that any relational database can be used and changed by anybody who has the right access to that blockchain. So there is one person, the system administrator, that can change and alter all the data in there. Most of the time, this is a skilled system administrator can change the data in a database without anybody noticing. The difference in a public blockchain is that anybody can write something in this structure, but the point is we know exactly who did it, because every operation is under cryptographic signing. So you have cryptographic signing of the person who did that, or better to say, the address who did that, and you know exactly when it was done, and once it is done, it can't be undone. And this is a very powerful feature because, for example, in the food industry, there are many solutions that are using blockchain. And the nice thing about using a blockchain, as using a public blockchain, is that we have been looking, for example, of competitors in the food blockchain industry, and we've been able to spot a lot of misconduct and a lot of fake users of the blockchain. So it's so transparent that basically you cannot lie, because once you do something, once you write something, you write in that specific time with your basically signing with your name and surname, and it can't be undone. So the basic thing is, yeah, you can lie if you want, you can write stupid things on the blockchain if you want, but that's going to be staying there forever with your name on it.
But
and it can be
without lying, many people, they make mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. And that, yeah. Yeah, there is this little difference between lying and making a mistake, because basically when people are lying, they're trying to get profit from it, and making a mistake is something very human. So, for example, the approach we took is, I will allow you to do something on the blockchain. I will not present your mistake if you say that this is an error, but I will show everybody that this is not the original version. I will show everybody that this is the new version, that it was a previous version. So if somebody checking by and they say, for example, they have people that's been sick because they've been eating your cheese and they don't know why, and they want to know if you did something wrong on your process, they will see that in your process everything seems perfect except for the fact that there's a document that is clearly been redacted, has been changed. So the point is, you can be still held accountable for what was there, and you have to reply to that. So the thing is the key here is transparency. You can't hide anything. And once you have this element, the important thing is, if you make a mistake, there's no problem. Everybody does that. So if you can simply say, I put the invoice, but it was wrong because I misrepresented the zeros, so it was 100 times bigger because I forgot to put a comma or a point. That it can happen. Everybody can see that actually that you are not gaining anything from it. You're not hiding anything from it. You just want to make things right. So if you have a plausible justification, then there is no reason into why hiding that mistake in the first place. So Basically, the idea is, yes, you can allow to have mistakes, and this is fine as long as you can prove that it was a mistake and not a way to fool people.
And so there's no control quality of the data. And
No.
Another question is, you insist on transparency and no lying and so on, but you know that in real life, many people they lie, and
Yeah.
even Trump and so on, and everybody
Yeah.
accepts. So don't you think that it is possible that lying will be integrated in this kind of blockchain in the future?
No. No.
Used to like lying.
No, the idea is basically if you want to lie, then in the end, what we saw, we had a couple of potential customers that came to us, but once we explained them exactly how things were going to be, and the fact that if they lie, it's going to be stay there forever, lucky for us, we lost the client because it was not a client that I want to work with. The thing is, if you want to lie, in the end, the best option for you is not to use a blockchain approach, is not to use a blockchain at all. So the difference in the end, especially for who's using a blockchain, why not as a commercial added value? You have this distinction between companies that do use the blockchain in the right way and those who don't. And then you have to pick one. Which one will you pick?
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
It seems that the question is when to use blockchain, no? You need to really have clear ideas about when it makes sense to use blockchain. And your opinion is that, if I understand well, that it makes sense only with open data.
No, not exactly.
No?
This is it can absolutely be used with open data, and it's probably one of the best way to use it. But for example, think about intellectual property. Say that I found the formula for nuclear fusion or something major breakthrough, and I'm not ready to publish it to the world. So this data has to be closed, has to be closed just to me. But at the same time, I can use the blockchain to have a proof of existence and ownership of that data. And it's extremely simple. By the way, we provide it for free because it's extremely simple to do that with the blockchain. So I can I can take my document. It doesn't matter if it's just a white paper of a few pages or the backup of terabytes of a database. I can reduce it to a single hash string, which is a control string. It's basically a fingerprint of the whole data. It's cryptographically secure, so I have mathematics behind it showing me that if I change just one single bit of all the data that I have, it will not match with my fingerprint by no means. So I can have that fingerprint that is strictly connected one-to-one with the original data. I can put that fingerprint with my address in the blockchain, and so the data will have a timestamping. So what does it mean? That I put an information on the blockchain that I know what it means. Nobody knows what it means until I want to. So if somebody try to steal my invention, I can say, no guys, this is the original paper. It belongs to me because I was the one who made this paper first, and I can prove it because the hash of this document is on the blockchain 2 weeks before you even started to think about it. This is the example of notarization. This is the very basic approach that you have on blockchain on any type of supply chain, because basically it's a set of notarization of this type. So I can use it very well with private data. The thing is, I do not have to put the data inside the blockchain. I can also just use the blockchain to put proof of existence of those data and then work on those. It is possible. We are not used to do this, but it is still completely possible.
There is a question from Nina in the chat. Okay, it's about the fit between blockchain and the green transition. And the question is, to what extent is it resource efficient?
Oh, well, it depends. The use of resources is a very common theme because there is this misconception that, for example, Bitcoin, which is basically the most well-known blockchain around, is using a lot of energy to do this and to do that. Actually, if you look at Cambridge University, they did some very nice ongoing research on how much energy consumption there is for Bitcoin, and it turns out that if you take all the televisions in the United States, and those that are turned off, those that are not working. So the appliances that are not working, just in the United States, uses 4 times as much energy as the whole Bitcoin network all over the world. This is you can look at the website to see the data and the ratio between. So the idea is, yes, Bitcoin is using a lot of energy, but we have stupid things that use far more energy than that. Just to make a comparison, then to frame this thing. But this is not the only.
The true, Marco, is that if I am right, all the data is replicated in all the nodes. Is that true? Is that true? So you are multiplying for I don't know,
exactly
200 or 300, what
50,000 times. And this is the good part of it, because this is what makes the blockchain, the network, reliable and unstoppable. Because even if you throw an atomic bomb on a continent, the rest of the world will still keep it going on. The redundancy of the blockchain is one of these key features. There are many studies on how sharding these things, so that, let's say, we take the 100% of the data and we divide it in 4 parts or 5 parts, and we share it around the world in a clever way, so that you do not replicate 100% of the data. Maybe you replicate just the 20% of the data. This is ongoing research, but this is not an issue also, because if you think about 12 years of Bitcoin at the moment are about 300 gigabytes of hard disk space, which means basically you can go at any hardware store or computer store and have it for less than 100 euros. So it takes just less than 100 euros to store the data of 12 years of Bitcoin. If you take, for example, Ethereum should be about 1.5 terabytes at the moment, which is completely feasible for any company around the world. And if you look at Quadrants, probably you just get along with this. I have a node that is running on a Raspberry Pi, and it's basically using 12 point something euros of power every year on a hardware that costs less than 50 euros, and the storage is less than 252 megabytes. So it depends. There are many types of blockchain. You can use the one that fits better your needs. You have to know what tool you are using, because every tool has its upsides and its downsides. You don't have to look just the upsides. Sometimes maybe the downsides are not balanced with it.
Thank you, grazie mille, Marco and Alex. We need to close. Sorry, because because I have a meeting of the European Expert Group on clusters just now at 9:30, and so I really need to close. Okay, but thank you very much, Marco, Alex, Ilaria. Okay, we have learned a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you for updating us on what is going on with the technology. Congratulations for your work. I animate you to participate in next meetings. We will have the next one tomorrow, internal meeting, but on Monday about advanced materials, and on Tuesday with the Commissioner Thierry Breton. So you are invited to join us whenever you want. Thank you, and grazie mille.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Antonio.
Thank you, Antonio. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.